Today we're 100% speedrunning Papers, Please, meaning we need to get all 20 endings and 7 tokens. The speedrun starts as soon as we create a new game, and if you haven't seen this game before, the basic premise is we won a labor lottery and got hired to work as the inspector at a border checkpoint for the country of our Statska. With this position, we decide who to let into the country based on the rules the government gives us, and it starts out pretty simple. Only our Statskan citizens are allowed to enter, but pretty much every day we'll get a new rule to follow. Though to get our first ending, I won't be listening to this rule at all. When we either admit someone into the country who shouldn't get in, or turn away someone who should, we get a citation. Every day we get 2 free citations that don't take away any of our credits, and after that we lose 5 credits, then 10, 15, 20, etc. Now for the first ending, we want to immediately run into debt, so we'll be admitting all the citizens of every other nation and denying our own. Then once the day is over, the country immediately realizes that hiring us was a terrible mistake, and they put us under arrest until our debts are paid. Pretty grim, right? But don't worry, these endings are only going to get darker. So now we'll repeat day 1, this time admitting the Arstotzkan citizens while refusing everyone else. I will also mention, by the way, it might seem like there aren't many speedrun strats for the game, but don't worry because there's actually a lot more than you might think. The first one being killing our family. Having a family is expensive, which means we want to kill everyone except for our wife. So we're going to get rid of food and heat for the next few days, and that ends day 1. Next on day 2, foreigners are finally allowed to enter as long as they have a valid passport that has no inconsistent information. We'll talk about that on day 3 though, since for day 2 we're denying everyone. This is because there will always be an attack on the 7th entrant, so denying everyone is the fastest even if we get a few citations. Then again, we got some more food, heat, and medicine to deny the whole family before going on to day 3. And day 3 is an important one since we want to correctly process as many people as possible. The more people you process, the more you get paid, and we really want to start out with a large sum of credits early on because we'll be intentionally getting citations later. Also for this day, the new rule that they announce is that foreigners now need to bring an entry ticket because of the attack on day 2, so here's what we need to keep track of. We need to make sure their passport hasn't expired, their picture looks like them, their issued by city is correct, and if they aren't an Arstotzkan citizen, that their ticket is valid today. If we aren't sure about one of these things, we can use the inspect tool to check what the game thinks, but we don't need to actually question them at all at this stage of the game, and instead we can just reject them if there are any discrepancies. Normally the game would give you the option to do something like fingerprinting them to check, but why even check if we won't lose points? And this game mechanic will apply to a bunch of stuff going forward, so it's a good way to get more people in during the day. Now after day 3 ends, we've almost successfully murdered our family, but we will give medicine to our wife to keep her barely hanging on. I know, I'm a great guy. Then on day 4, they bumped up the requirements again. Now foreigners need an entry permit. The entry permit needs we need to check if their name, passport number, enter by date, and purpose for their trip is consistent, so it really starts to bump up the difficulty here. But since I'm going for all 7 tokens this run, there are a few times where we want to let people through even if they have incorrect information. One of those people on day 4 is this lady who wants to see her son. If you point out that her entry permit is expired but still let her through, she gives a token, meaning that's number 1. Then we can also get a second token today from the boy Georgie, who, yeah, he has a great passport. Georgie is also important for one of our endings later on, so we're just going to take the citation and let him through. Otherwise, he'll keep returning and lose us time in the future. Now finally, for the Arstotzkan side of things, they have to bring an ID card. This means we need to make sure their name, date of birth, height, and weight are consistent to let them through. But yeah, that's pretty much it for day 4, so we can go home and torture our family again. Now on day 5, there's no new rules to follow, but the game gives us the option to detain really suspicious people. I won't be using it that often, but it's there, I guess. Other than that though, it's a pretty standard day besides for this guy and his wife. He's happy to finally be free from integrity and tyranny, and his paperwork checks out. Then as we let him through, he tells us to watch out for his wife too. She comes in directly after him and unfortunately doesn't have an entry permit. But this is another case where if we approve her, we get our 3rd token, so I guess I'll let it slide. Overall, pretty good day, and now we get to go home to the sight of everyone but our wife being dead. This means we can finally give her food and heat every day since it'll be a lot cheaper. This also makes an ending in the future easier, but we'll get to that later. For now, we're moving on to day 6, and this is another attack day, so we'll be accepting everyone to get to our 7th entrant as fast as possible. This day also does introduce work passes, which look like this, but they're not too important for now. So once we accept the 7th person, they'll walk through and bomb our guards, so another quick day. But because of that attack, day 7's rules change again, and we now need to search all Kalechians. Unfortunately for them though, that seems like a lot of work, so we can just auto deny them instead since it won't lead to a citation. Next Next on day 8, they removed the searching Kolechians rules and add in diplomats. Some people now have a diplomat pass which has their name, passport number, and countries they're allowed in. We also finally get introduced to EazySpeezy, the organization trying to overthrow the government that we can either help or hurt. And they tell us to give a note to a man named Corman Drex who comes later that day. And then when he finally comes, we get another note that basically says he wants our help in defeating the Arstotzkan government. And lucky for him, we'll help for now. He then gives us this coded document, which we'll use on later dates to decipher the names of EazySpeezy's agents. Next on day 9, we get introduced to one of the guards, Kalenz. Apparently he gets paid extra when we detain people, and he even offers to share money with us if we detain more. I don't really care though, so honestly, unlucky for him. Other than that, this is the first day we can get random bombers. After we process 9 people, if someone has a weight discrepancy, they have the potential to carry bombs, and if we let them through, our day gets ended early. We didn't get it this day, but there's a lot of days it can happen depending on RNG. Now on day 10, we start out with our new boss finally showing up and basically saying we're trash. So yeah, that kinda hurts. But he shows up every 10 days and gives us a plaque to hang on the wall. Unfortunately, putting it up can actually waste time since people will sometimes comment on it, so I'll put it up for now, but we'll be putting it down later. After that, on the 4th person of the day, we get this lady who we want to interrogate and then let through anyways. Otherwise, she'll refuse to leave the booth, wasting a bit of time. And this day is another day with the chance to get a bomber, and for any of these days, we want to get to the 9th entrant as fast as possible, just in case we do get a bomber and end the day even faster. Day 11 though is when things really start getting interesting. First, for gameplay changes, we now need to check the seals on entry permits since counterfeits have started showing up. It's kind of an annoying check though, so I mess it up a lot. Next, we have our first EazySpeezy operative, who's always going to be the 6th person in line, so we'll take the citation and let them through. And once we reach the end of the day, because we're helping EazySpeezy, they'll send us 1,000 credits. We do have the option to burn the money, but want to keep it for another ending coming up soon. But before that ending, we have ending number 3. And yes, these are kind of out of order by the way, since this is number 2 for us, but it's what the game refers to as ending 3. In this ending, an official checks on us to see if we know anything regarding EazySpeezy. Then if we decide to be honest and give them the EazySpeezy name sheet, we get arrested for association. So yeah, guess you shouldn't be honest. But after that, we go back into day 12 and tell the inspector nothing cause he sucks. There's no new mechanics this day, but there is a new token opportunity with this man who has awesome glasses. For each engineer we give his business card to, he'll give us 5 credits. And if we get all 4 of them, we get a token. Now after that, we'll deny everyone except for our first engineer and the 9th person in line since it's time to have another day end early. Now of course, this means on day 13, we got some new rules. With foreign entrants needing an identity supplement, this needs to be a recent sheet with their height, weight, and description. So we basically need to do what we've already been doing for the Arstotzkan citizens. Another mildly important thing is this dude who lost his ID card. He gives us his team's pennant and tries to convince us to let him through, but I also don't really care, so unlucky for him. We do get to keep his pennant though, which is surprisingly important for another ending later on. Don't worry, it'll make sense soon. We also want to be very careful on not getting too many citations this day, since at the end of day 13, all of the money other than today's earnings get confiscated since we didn't burn the money from EazySpeezy, so that's pretty sad. Next on day 14, we get wanted criminals introduced. Every day on the paper from now on, we get 3 people who might show up, and if we see them, we need to deny or detain them. I also forgot about this a lot because the paper automatically goes away when you call the first person, but to be honest, it won't really make a difference if we make a mistake or two with these guys. Another thing that happens today is we get our next ending. EazySpeezy shows up on day 14 and pretty much threatens us to let the next operative in. This is always going to be entrant number 9. If we deny them, the next day EazySpeezy reports the money we didn't burn earlier, and this dude comes up and arrests us, which means that's 3 endings done. So we need to go back to day 14 and let the annoying person through. Not gonna lie, EazySpeezy is getting really pushy now. Anyways, it's time for day 15, which doesn't add more rules. We do get a bomb though, which we need to disarm, and this by far is the worst bomb I've ever seen in my life. Kind of embarrassing, but that's about it for the day. This does also mark about halfway through the day counter though, so that's pretty cool. If you're wondering why we've only gotten 3 of the 20 endings by the way, most come either on day 31 or just better to do later, so don't worry, we'll be getting there soon. For now, on day 16, our department decides to move the outer guards, so now we're in charge of defending the checkpoint. Because of this, we get a new tranquilizer gun, and we'll be using it on this exact same day. But before that, Glasses Guy comes back and gives us both our money and our 4th token for the game since I gave all his business cards away. Nice guy. But other than that, we will be insta-denying everyone, since on the processing of the 8th entrant, we get another attack. If we shoot the the person with our tranquilizer, we get both 20 extra credits and it'll end the day a bit faster, so always worth it to try and react fast. Now on day 17, we see our new friend Sergio, and I definitely won't be letting him die to save time. Don't worry about tomorrow, buddy. But other than that, all we need to worry about is letting the 9th entrant through for Ezek, so it's a pretty quiet day. By the way, here's where we're also going to start letting our wife die. We're going for our next ending where the entire family dies, and it's fastest to timer death for day 20. Now on day 18, it's another accept everyone day. Then once we make it to the 8th entrant, an attacker will throw a grenade at our guards, and unfortunately for Sergio, it's faster to let him die so we can disable his future events. Unlucky for the boy. And this event makes it so that now we're denying all entry from import on day 19, which isn't too bad, but we also have to deal with the reason for denial stamp. Before getting this stamp, if I saw anything wrong with a person's certificates, I could just deny them and move on with my life. Now if it's something like missing an entry permit and they can give us a new one, we have to accept them. But if they aren't able to provide what they're missing, we have to hit them with the reason for denial stamp. For other inconsistencies like height or weight, we can cheese the system. With this lady, her height is incorrect. Now the game wants us to fingerprint her, but we can just deny her with that reason anyways. And even if she was the right person, we still don't get a citation. So yeah, overall not a big deal. Just a little bit extra I have to keep on my mind. So we're finally on to day 20, which means our boss is showing up again. He tells us about an old friend who will be coming through the checkpoint in a few days, and we need to let her through no matter what, which I'll bring up again when she gets here. For now though, it's time to poison an innocent person. Ezek is back yet again, and they want us to kill an assassin that's going after them. But luckily, we don't actually have to poison the right person to get all endings. Instead, we poison the next person so we can end the day as fast as possible. This is a pretty sad scene where they fall to the ground, and so does one of the guards who tries to check on them, but it's worth it since it's such a fast day. And that's especially important since after we go to sleep, our wife finally dies, giving us our 4th ending. This causes the government to fire us since they only want happy families to represent them, so yeah, pretty sad. But we get to repeat day 20, and this is why we timed her death for this day, since it's such a fast one. Now this day will pretty much be the exact same thing, except this time I'm going to put up the pennant on my wall. This makes our boss upset since we're only supposed to have official plaques there, and we promise to not let it happen again, which is going to be the setup for another ending which will pay off on day 30. But anyways, other than that, it's the exact same, besides finally nursing our wife back to health, and yeah, I know, husband of the year. So we're on to day 21, which introduces people seeking asylum and how they require a grant of asylum. But we won't be dealing with that today since it's another attack day. The only other thing of note this day is Watch Guy, who doesn't have his papers in order, but promises to come back later with the correct papers and gives us his watch as collateral. He'll be another token in a couple of days, but for now we get a cool watch to look at. Then it's just another day where we're accepting everyone, and finally during the 9th entrant, we get our next early day home. Now on to day 22, it's a pretty basic day with no new rules. But there is another random bomber chance after the 9th entrant, and surprisingly, I finally got one, so thanks for the time save. Then on to day 23, it's going to be yet another fast day. Again, we want to accept everyone since there's going to be a planned attack on the 8th. Ezek has set it up so that someone will run through the barricades, and in the commotion, we can shoot this red guy. They also give us an actual gun to do it, and we'll have that for the rest of the game. Before that though, we have Watch Guy come back, and he gives us 10 credits for his watch, but he claims that we scratched it and wants his money back. If you actually give him the money, he apologizes and tells you that the scratch was already there before giving us our 5th token. Now finally onto the red man, we aren't going to shoot him. You can get 2 different endings involving him, but we're going to come back later, so let's go on to day 24. And this is a pretty boring day. The one change is that now we need to confiscate the passports of our Toscan citizens in the Altan district since the government is suspicious of them. We don't do this today though, since you get a bit of a long scene where people argue with you, and this is another potential bomber day. So if I see people from the Altan district, I automatically let them go through since I'm getting a citation anyways. Next on day 25, we get a notice that the United Federation citizens are starting to present a risk of spreading an infectious disease, so we aren't supposed to let them in. But it's just another one of these one-day bans that the game really loves. This is also our next token day, where we get a really nice note from a person who only has their passport. Of course, we don't let them in, but it says you're hot like fire, object of desire, wrap my heart in wire, approve my visa. I appreciate it. And then, only 2 people later, we get someone who's really sad because no one loves them. So we're able to brighten their day with the note and get our 6th token, meaning we only need 1 more. And the last important thing for this day is we finally see our boss's friend who doesn't have the right clearance, but we'll let her through anyways, at least for now. Following that interesting day though, it's time for another let everyone through right away day, since there will be another attack on the 8th entrant. As for the rule changes, they also added a new requirement for everyone, which is to have a polio vaccination since the diseases have gotten worse. Then day 26 27 is actually really nice because the government finally decided to consolidate the entry permit and ID supplement into a single access permit. I like this change a lot because it was kind of annoying when there were like 4 pieces of paper on your screen. This is also the day of the final EazySpeezy task. EazySpeezy knows there's a diplomat coming through today, so they want us to take the diplomat's passport and give it to them. Pretty simple stuff, even if the diplomat wasn't too happy, and that's all we really have for this day. Now at this point, we're coming really close to the end of the story, but we're not even halfway through the speedrun since there's a lot of stuff we need to go back and do. At the very least though, we get another attack on day 28, so that speeds us along. It also now gives us the task of confiscating passports from every Arstotzkan citizen, so yeah, people are definitely getting a little restless here. And moving on to day 29, we can definitely see that. First of all, the official dude shows up again and tells us we're gonna have an audit in 3 days going over everything we've done during the game, and that we can't leave before it. Which isn't that good for us since we have been helping out EazySpeezy, but our boy Georgie comes in clutch and tells us we should move to Oberstan instead. Then when we say our passport was confiscated, he tells us about a guy who can make counterfeit passports if we give him real ones. And Georgie even gives us his current passport to start us out. Then after that, we find out about one of the saddest parts of the game. A man comes up to us and asks us to confiscate the passport from a criminal named Simon Wentz if we see him. Apparently Simon did awful things to this man's daughter and he wants revenge, which will be our last token. Yeah, we hate Simon here, so you already know what we're doing. And that opportunity will present itself on day 30. But before then, we get our last meeting with our boss. Now the night before, our wife gave us a family picture of all the people we let die, which is pretty morbid. So we hang it up on the wall. And because this is the second time we've disobeyed our boss, he gets us arrested and that's our 5th ending. Yeah, let's just not do that again. So we make it through the boss, and on the 3rd person of the day, our target Simon Wentz showed up. Except I was kind of in autopilot and detained him rather than taking his passport and letting him go through. Oops. Thankfully though, we need to complete this day 2 more times in the future, so it doesn't affect the speedrun. Still pretty dumb of me. This is especially sad when the dad comes by and we tell him our mistakes, so yeah, sorry man. Anyways, after that very standard day, we finally make it to day 31, where we're going to rapid fire 5 different endings. On this day, during the 8th entrant, we get an attack and have a bunch of options to choose from. The first of which is to shoot both the attackers before they blow up the wall. So it's a last minute betrayal of EazySpeezy and ruins their plans. Then on my review the next day, the officer finds out about everything I've done this playthrough and we get sent to execution. Second, we have the option of letting the attackers blow up the wall but shooting them afterwards. This means that EazySpeezy's plan succeeded, but they can no longer trust us. And it's pretty ominous what actually happens to us, but I guess that's up for you to decide. Third, we shoot both the attackers ourselves and then use the passport that Georgie gave us to escape to Oberstan. This section is great because we get a terrible looking passport and look like this, but they still let us through. Not sure what happened to our wife, but hey, at least we're safe. Next, number 4 is pretty much the same thing, but we're actually going to take our wife with us. All we need to do is confiscate a random person's passport, so now we have 2, and go to Oberstan with her. This is also another reason why we killed off the rest of the family, since it would be really expensive and a hassle to take that many people. This is also the first ending that gives us credits, so it's one of the 3 more official endings. And finally, for the 5th ending in this short sequence, we don't shoot anything and just let the attackers do their thing. This helps overthrow the government again, and EazySpeezy even asks us to become one of their agents, so that's the 2nd ending with credits. Now immediately after all these endings, we go back to day 27. If you remember, this is where EazySpeezy wanted us to steal a diplomat's passport, but we'll choose not to do it this time. After this, the next few days proceeded the exact same ways, but I did remember to take Simon Wentz's passport this time, so that was good. And resulted in our 7th token from the dad, so that's the token part of the speedrun done. Also in the papers the next day, they talk about how Simon was found bloody and dead on the streets, deserved. Which means all we need to do is get to day 31 again and quickly finish 2 more endings. The first one is again letting the agents blow up the wall and then betraying them. This time though, instead of EazySpeezy succeeding and leaving us behind, the government remains in power. So they arrest us for not defending the checkpoint, and yeah, it's another jail ending. Then the other ending we can do right now is shooting both the attackers before they blow up the wall. Again, it's pretty much just the officer sends us to jail and we get executed. Not sure why it counts as a different ending, but hey, now that's 12 done. But to get the last 8, we have to go all the way back in time to day 11. Now obviously I'm not going to repeat what happens on every day, but instead I'll go over the key differences and endings we'll be getting along the way. Starting with day 11, we decide not to help the EazySpeezy agents and burn the money that EazySpeezy sends us. Yep, we're doing the government run now. EazySpeezy also tries to send us money on day 12, so we'll burn it again, otherwise we get arrested for not helping them on day 14. And from now on, it's pretty much just every time there's an EazySpeezy event, we don't help. It's also kind of funny because on day 20 when they give us poison, we can still poison the next person option to end the day early and suffer no consequences, so that's pretty great. Anyways, the next notable event happens on day 23 when Ezek wants us to shoot the red man, and we actually do it this time because it results in an immediate ending. The first time we'll shoot the red man with a real gun. This ends up killing him, and we get sentenced to death for murdering an innocent. But this doesn't even help Ezek. The next inspector turns out not to be cooperative, so they go into hibernation. Yeah, that's pretty disappointing. At least they take our wife to Oberstan, I guess. On the other side of the coin though, if we shoot the red man with the tranquilizer, the exact same thing happens. But instead of being sentenced to death, we need to do forced labor. So, yay? Yeah, I kinda hate how useless Ezek is in these endings. But whatever, our next interesting point is on day 25 with our boss's friend Shay. The game gives you the option to not only refuse to let her in, but also detain her. She warns us that our boss wouldn't be too happy, but that's also life, so we do it anyways. Then on the start of day 26, our boss comes by and decides to lie and say we stole from the government. Yep, going to jail again. But that makes number 15, meaning only 5 endings left until the end of the speedrun. And 4 of those 5 are going to come in on day 28. We chose this day because we have both the tranquilizer and real gun, and there's an attack during the 7th entrant, so it's pretty early. But all 4 of these endings are pretty much the same. There's one where we shoot a civilian with a real gun, one where we shoot a civilian with a tranquilizer, one where we shoot a guard with a real gun, and one where we shoot a guard with a tranquilizer. Then we either get sent to jail for forced labor or simply death based on if we use the tranquilizer or gun. Pretty simple stuff. And finally, after making it all the way back to day 31, it's time for our 20th ending. In this playthrough, we have completely been on the government's side. So when the attack happens, all we need to do is shoot both the attackers and sleep to the next day. Then when we're having our audit, the official says that we're free of all suspicion and get to continue working our boring inspector job. Hooray! Finally, we end off time as soon as we click next on the endless unlock code, and that's a 100% speedrun of Papers, Please in 6 hours, 41 minutes, and 57 seconds. Now, no one else has ever actually done this exact run, so that's a world record, but it's really similar to the plain old endings run, which with my time, I would get 3rd in, so I'm gonna take it. Alright, subscribe if you enjoyed. Bye.